Chapter 456, Master Gathering. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. With joyfulness in his eyes, Zhang Yuochen immediately asked, "Which kind of five elements spirit treasure did you get in the five elements primitive world?" In the five elements primitive world, he had obtained three kinds of five elements spirit treasures, including a black glazed spinel, a purple agarwood, and a golden Ganoderma lucidum. However, he still lacked two kinds of spirit treasures. Naturally, he was ambitious in martial arts. He did not only want to practice into the treasured bodies of double spirits or the treasured body of three spirits, but also the five elements chaotic body, which was beyond saintly being. Without ambition, how could a man become a person of importance? Without ambition, how could a warrior become a peerless superior? One of the spirit treasures is the bloody saint cultivating soil. Juan Mook Singerling blinked her eyes and said with a smile, "If you can defeat Lu Fanshan, I can give you bloody saint cultivating soil. I also got three kinds of five elements spirit treasures, so I can exchange the black glazed spinel and the purple agarwood with you," Zhang Yuochen said. Until he had developed to the treasured body of metal spirit, Zhang Yuochen would not exchange or sell the golden Ganoderma lucidum because it was rare. However, he had many black glazed spinels and purple agarwood. Juan Mook Singerling could feel Zhang Yuochen's estrangement from the conversation. He had never refused her gifts before. She looked at him deeply and said nothing. Boom! Suddenly, a deafening yell was heard in the Colosseum of the Martial Market. All the people stood up and called the name, Lu Fanshan. While Zhang Yuochen was communicating with Juan Mook Singerling, Lu Fanshan defeated Yi Qing, who fell off the heavenly ring. Actually, Yi Qing ranked in the top 10,000 on the heaven board, so he could compete with superiors of the first change in the fish dragon realm. Unexpectedly, he had lost to Lu Fanshan so quickly that he only had time to use 92 movements. Surprisingly, Lu Fanshan, at the final state of the heaven realm, was able to defeat Yi Qing within 100 movements. Within 5 years, he will definitely be in the completion of heaven realm. After several years hard work, he will have a chance to enter the top 10 on the heaven board. Impossible. It's 10 or 100 times harder than breaking through to the fish dragon realm. The first 10 people on the heaven board are saintly beings, blessed from above. They can fight against saintly beings in the same realm. Haven't you discovered that Lu Fanshan is not much weaker than those saintly beings now, based on his current strength? What? Is he so strong now? All the people in the Colosseum of the Martial Market were stunned by Lu Fanshan's strength. Some old masters of the fish dragon realm predicted that he would have the chance to enter the top 10 on the heaven board within 10 years. Throughout the whole of Kunlun's field, millions of people had been listed on the heaven board. However, only those first 100 or 10 persons would be remembered and known in the world. So, the top 10 on the heaven board was a great honor. If in a prolific period of great talents, even saintly beings might not be able to enter the top 10 on the heaven board, an elder in a purple robe sitting above the heavenly ring announced, "Lu Fanshan of the Sword Sanctum defeats Yi Qing of the Hanging Sect." He replaces Yi Qing and rises to the 5,800th position on the heaven board. At the same time, he obtains 287,000 military merits. Lu Fanshan, do you still want to challenge? Lu Fanshan stood in the center of the heavenly ring, turned around, and stared at Zhang Yuochen. He raised his arms and waved his sword, saying, "Zhang Yuochen, since you've come, let's have a fair fight. Today, I want to compete with the young king of the eastern region. I wonder how powerful you are." Following his eyes, all the people looked at Zhang Yuochen. What? Zhang Yuochen also came to the Colosseum of the Martial Market. Lu Fanshan wants to fight him. A surprised, young warrior, about 10 years old, looked around for Zhang Yuochen. A big, tall, bald man in a cotton garment was sitting in the first row. He looked ugly and ferocious, like a butcher. However, his eyes were extremely deep, and they sparkled with wisdom, revealing a temperament that contrasted sharply with his figure. The bald man crossed his arms and said to the young man, "Didn't you know that? Today, I came specially to the Colosseum of the Martial Market to see them fight. It must be a splendid fight because both of them are top warriors. If they don't fight at least once, no one will know who is stronger. On his waist hung 4 tokens, including a black-yellow iron token, a green-black copper token, a white earth silver token, and a golden heaven gold token, which respectively represented that he entered the yellow board in the yellow realm, the black board in the black realm, the earth board in the earth realm, and the heaven board in the heaven realm. The yellow iron token was imprinted, number 1 on the yellow board. The black copper token was imprinted, number 1 on the black board. The earth silver token was imprinted, number 1 on the earth board. Covered by the other 3 tokens, the marking of the last golden heaven token remained hidden. Naturally, his rank on the heaven board was unseen. Startled by his ranks on the yellow, black, and earth boards, the young warrior did not dare to speak any more. On the left of the bald man sat a veiled young woman. Her eyes were uncovered and very beautiful. Naturally, she also saw the 3 tokens on the bald man's waist. With a pretended lightness, she snorted and said, "I don't think so. Zhang Yuochen is only about 20 years old, and he has only practiced martial arts for a few years. However, Lu Fanshan has already turned 26. So his martial cultivation must surpass Zhang Yuochen's." The bald man said, "In this fight, you're optimistic about Lu Fanshan?" The veiled woman laughed and said, "If they were in the same realm, Zhang Yuochen might be stronger than Lu Fanshan. But for now, Zhang Yuochen still can't compete with Lu Fanshan." "Perhaps." The bald man said. Today, many masters on the heaven board hid in the Colosseum of the martial market, among whom were some who had been famous for years. Usually, they sought experience in the battlefield of the primitive world or secluded themselves for refining. When they heard that Lu Fanshan wanted to openly challenge Zhang Yuochen, one of 6 great kings among the new generation, many superiors on the heaven board who had secluded themselves for refining came specially to watch the battle. Many of them wanted to know Zhang Yuochen's actual strength. Meanwhile, they wondered if he deserved the name a young king. If he did not deserve it, many people would take action to replace him. The name young king could almost be compared with the top 10 on the heaven board. Trees leave a shadow, and people want to be famous. Many young warriors stood beneath and looked up to them. They were always ready to rush up and dethrone them. Under the public gaze, Zhang Yuochen carried the ancient abyss sword behind his back, walked to the heavenly ring step by step, and stood opposite Lu Fanshan. In an instant, the whole Colosseum of the martial market quieted down. Countless eyes were blazing. Zhang Yuochen looked calm and undisturbed, saying, "Brother Lu, you must have consumed a lot of genuine qi since you've fought 8 times. I can wait an hour for you. Let's fight after you are restored to your peak." Lu Fanshan instantly took a Huiki pill and began to restore his genuine qi in the center of the heavenly ring. He obviously valued this battle very much. He knew that Zhang Yuochen was hard to conquer, so he would not be sloppy. Meanwhile, Zhang Yuochen also closed his eyes to recall Kong Laniu's sacred guiding sword. He wanted to keep comprehending the subtle sword technique. Although he had achieved heart integrated into sword, he was just at the initial stage. Among those in the heaven realm and the fish dragon realm, he was very remarkable. However, he still lagged far behind saints. If he could comprehend even 10% or 20% of the essence of Kong Laniu's sacred guiding sword, he would definitely be able to enter the intermediate stage of heart integrated into sword. An hour passed very quickly. Lu Fanshan opened his sharp, intelligent eyes again, and said, "Zhang Yuochen, I'm restored to my peak. Draw your sword." "Okay. Then let's fight." Without opening his eyes, Zhang Yuochen mobilized qi with his fingers. The ancient abyss sword immediately flew out of its sheath and fell into his hands. Swish. He casually displayed one movement, which was sacred guiding sword. He had practiced it in his mind numerous times. It seemed just one stroke, but it actually formed countless sword shadows. In the end, they converged into a sword path that extended more than 10 meters in front of Lu Fanshan. Just a simple inferior class, spiritual stage sword technique deeply troubled Lu Fanshan, who could not stand up to it. His momentum instantly broke down, and he had to retreat quickly. If he had not retreated, he would have been unable to deal with Zhang Yuochen's next sword movements. Kong Laniu's cultivation was so amazing that her sacred guiding sword technique was almost a saint's teaching. She not only had a sword fight with Zhang Yuochen, but she also gave him directions. Zhang Yuochen was so smart that he had understood many truths of the movement in one day. Unconsciously, his sword techniques improved a lot. That was why he could force such a superior like Lu Fanxian to draw back with only sacred guiding sword. Lu Fanxian stood firm, bending his legs and lowering himself into a defensive stance to meet Zhang Yuochen's fierce sword attack. He discovered that Zhang Yuochen was still using the sword technique's sacred guiding sword as his second movement. Why this movement again? Lu Fanxian developed a headache. This sword technique seemed simple, but it actually had infinite variation, so he did not dare to stay in its path. Thus, he dodged again. Until Zhang Yuochen showed a killing move, Lu Fanxian would keep cautious. He had to prove his strength as a young king in this battle. He could not afford to be defeated or careless. Many of warriors sitting on the spectator stand were confused and puzzled at this fight. Zhang Yuochen is fighting Lu Fanxian with his eyes closed. Is he so arrogant? The veiled woman said, frowning. She thought that Zhang Yuochen disrespected his opponent, as he was fighting Lu Fanxian with his eyes closed. Juan Muxingling laughed and said, whether he fights with eyes opened or closed, there is no difference. Don't you know that Zhang Yuochen's talent in spiritual power is better than that of his martial arts? Then, Juan Muxingling cupped her chin, stared at the heavenly ring with her beautiful eyes, and said, moreover, I think that Zhang Yuochen is not fighting but coming into some practicing state. He must be comprehending a profound sword technique.